The envelope was empty when he opened it. 3 days. No sign of her. No message from his son. He tore the house apart, checked the bank account, called everyone who knew her. Nothing. She just vanished. And the worst part, she took something with her. Something he doesn't even know exists yet. A secret so big that if he found out, it would destroy everything he built in the last few weeks. But she chose silence. And now he's searching for the wrong woman, the wrong truth, the wrong son. Because what she discovered before disappearing changed everything. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Simple. White. With the lab's discreet logo in the upper corner. Yuna stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something worse. Hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, she was wrong. That the intuition that woke her every night at 3 a.m. was just paranoia. But when she tore open the envelope and read the numbers, the percentage, the technical words confirming everything, 0% probability of paternity, she didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't call anyone. Yuna folded the paper carefully, put it back in the envelope, and stored it in her sock drawer. Among the ones she never wore, the white cotton ones Min-jae bought for her in their first year of marriage because wives should wear white socks. She closed the drawer, and then sat on the edge of the bed, hands on her knees, staring at the wall. The apartment was silent. Jae, their son, was at school. Min-jae was, well, she didn't even know where he spent his days anymore. Probably with her. The pregnant woman. The woman he chose instead of Yuna. The woman carrying another man's child. And Min-jae didn't know. Yuna sat there for 2 hours. When Jae came home from school, she was making noodles, smiling, asking about his day, but something inside her had already broken. And what scared her wasn't the anger. It was the power. She held in her hands the truth that would destroy Min-jae. That would humiliate him in front of his entire organization. That would make the mistress run. That would dismantle the lie he built. And Yuna didn't know if she wanted to use it. 3 weeks earlier, Yuna sat in her car, parked across the street from the private clinic, the same expensive clinic where Min-jae took his mistress for prenatal exams. She hadn't planned to be there, but in recent months, following had become a habit, a silent addiction, the only way to understand what was happening to her own life. And that's when she saw her walk out. Sua, long black hair, rounded belly, triumphant smile. She got into a car, a black sedan that Yuna recognized because it used to be hers. Min-jae had given the car to his mistress, as if Yuna was no longer worthy of driving something he paid for. But what caught Yuna's attention wasn't the car. It was the man in the passenger seat. He wasn't Min-jae. He was younger, tattoos on his neck, an easy, intimate smile. He placed his hand on Sua's belly before starting the engine, and Yuna felt something crack inside her. That night, she hired a private investigator. Korean, discreet, expensive. He asked minimal questions, just took the photo of Sua that Yuna had taken and said, 2 weeks. 10 days later, the investigator sent a report. Sua had been with another man for months. He was a dealer, low in the hierarchy, but known in the circuit. They met in cheap motels. She lied to Min-jae about where she was, and the baby. Yuna looked at the records, the dates, the text messages the investigator managed to intercept. The baby wasn't Min-jae's, but Sua was letting him believe it was. She was using the pregnancy to infiltrate his life, his money, his power. And Min-jae, the man who led hundreds of people, who made brutal decisions without blinking, had fallen like a fool. Yuna requested the DNA test. She needed absolute certainty, and when the results arrived, 0%. It was the first time in months she felt she had control over something. Yuna didn't tell Min-jae. She could have. God knows she imagined the scene 1,000 times. Walking into his office, throwing the envelope on his desk, watching his face crumble, watching him call Sua, seeing the lie explode. But it wasn't revenge she wanted. It was freedom. Yuna realized something in the following weeks. As long as she had that envelope, she was invisible. Min-jae was so obsessed with the pregnancy, with Sua, with his future child, that he no longer noticed Yuna existed. He barely looked at Jae anymore. And it was for Jae that she made the decision. She started moving money. Small amounts. Discreet transfers to an account Min-jae didn't know existed. He never controlled what she did. After all, wives weren't threats. They were accessories. She contacted a lawyer, not in Seoul, in another city, a woman who specialized in disappearances. She packed 2 suitcases, one for her, one for Jae, essential documents, Jae's favorite toys, photos, not of Min-jae, but of her family, the ones who died years ago, the ones she left behind to marry him, And she waited. She waited for the perfect moment. The moment when Minjae would be so consumed by his fantasy that he wouldn't notice her absence until it was too late. That moment came on a Friday. Minjae left early, said he was taking Sua to see the new apartment, the one he bought for her and the baby. He'd be gone all day. Yuna picked up Jae from school at noon, told the principal it was a family emergency. She drove to the airport. Before boarding, she left the envelope on the kitchen table. Not for Minjae, for Sua, because Yuna realized something in those final days. The truth would hurt Minjae more if he wasn't the one to discover it, if Sua found it first, if the lie collapsed from within. And as the plane took off, Yuna looked at Jae sleeping beside her and felt, for the first time in 7 years, light. But what she didn't know was that Minjae would find the empty house before Sua found the envelope, and that her silence would become the loudest scream he'd ever heard. Minjae arrived home at 9 p.m. The apartment was dark. He didn't think much of it at first. Yuna probably took Jae to her friend's place, that woman from church, the one who always smiled too much and asked too many questions about their marriage. He hated her. He dropped his keys on the counter, loosened his tie, and walked to the kitchen for water. That's when he noticed silence, not the normal kind. Not the everyone's asleep silence or the Yuna's mad at me again silence. This was different. This was absence. No hum of the refrigerator. Wait, no, it was humming. No ticking clock. The clock was there, on the wall, ticking like always. But something was missing. Something he couldn't name. He walked to Jae's room. The door was open. The bed was made. Too perfectly made. Yuna never made Jae's bed that neatly unless they were expecting guests. He opened the closet. Empty. Not completely. Some clothes were still there. Old shirts. Pants Jae had outgrown. But the favorites. The dinosaur hoodie. The sneakers with the lights. The backpack shaped like a turtle. Gone. Minjae's chest tightened. He walked faster now. To their bedroom. Threw open the closet doors. Yuna's side was half empty. Not ransacked. Not messy. Carefully selected. Like she'd spent time deciding what mattered and what didn't. Yuna? His voice sounded strange in the empty apartment. Thin. Small. He checked the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone. The face cream she used every night. The expensive one he complained about but always replaced when it ran out. Gone. He went back to the kitchen. Opened drawers. Her passport wasn't in the usual spot. Neither was Jae's. That's when he saw it. On the kitchen table. A white envelope. His heart stopped. For a moment, one terrible, irrational moment, he thought it was a suicide note, that Yuna had finally reached her breaking point, that he'd driven her to... He grabbed the envelope, tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, but it wasn't addressed to him. To Sua, written in Yuna's careful handwriting at the top. Minjae's hands started shaking. He read, and with every word, every sentence, every cold clinical phrase from the DNA lab, his world tilted sideways. Alleged father, Park Minjae biological sample, fetal DNA, maternal blood draw. Result, 0% probability of paternity. Conclusion, Park Minjae is excluded as the biological father. The paper slipped from his fingers. He read it again, and again. The words didn't change. 0%. Excluded. Not the father. His mind went blank, then flooded, then blank again. Sua, the pregnancy, the ultrasounds he'd attended, the apartment he'd bought, the future he destroyed his marriage for. It wasn't his. None of it was his. And Yuna knew. Yuna had known. For how long? Days? Weeks? And she hadn't said anything. Hadn't screamed. Hadn't thrown it in his face. She'd just left, taken their son, and disappeared. Minjae sat down heavily in the kitchen chair. The same chair where Yuna used to sit every morning, drinking tea, reading her book while Jae ate cereal. The same chair where she'd sat 3 months ago when he told her he was leaving her for Sua. When she'd just nodded, when she hadn't cried. He'd thought she didn't care. He'd been so fucking wrong. His phone buzzed. A text from Sua. Are you coming over tonight? The baby's kicking so much. He stared at the message. The baby. Not his baby. He stood up, walked to the sink, and vomited. 3 hours later, Minjae sat in his car outside Sua's apartment building. He hadn't gone up yet. He'd been sitting here, in the dark, staring at the lit window on the 5th floor where she lived, where he'd been spending most of his nights lately, where he'd imagined building a new life, a life based on a lie. He looked at the DNA report on the passenger seat. He'd brought it with him. He wasn't sure why. Maybe to show her. to watch her face when he exposed her, or maybe just to prove to himself it was real. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Park, a man's voice. Calm. Professional. I believe we need to talk about your wife. Min Jae's grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? I'm the investigator, Mrs. Park hired 3 weeks ago. She paid me to find the truth about Miss Sua's pregnancy. A pause. I assume you've seen the results by now. How did you... Mrs. Park left very specific instructions, sir. If she disappeared, I was to contact you exactly 72 hours later. It's been 72 hours. Min Jae's mind reeled. Where is she? I don't know. That wasn't part of my contract. Then what the fuck do you want? The investigator's voice remained even. To deliver a message. Mrs. Park wanted you to know 3 things. First, she knows everything about Sua and the real father. Second, she's not coming back. And third, the man paused. She said to tell you that she could have destroyed you, that she had every right to, but she chose mercy instead. Mercy? Min Jae laughed bitterly. She took my son. Your son. The investigator's tone shifted. Colder. With respect, Mr. Park, Jay stopped being yours the day you chose another woman's pregnancy over his 7th birthday. Mrs. Park mentioned you didn't even remember it was his birthday last month. You were too busy shopping for cribs. The line went dead. Min Jae sat in the silence of his car, the investigator's words echoing in his head. Jay's birthday. October 14th. He'd missed it. He'd completely fucking forgotten. And Yuna hadn't said anything. Hadn't reminded him. Hadn't called him out. She'd just taken Jay out for cake. Alone. Like Min Jae didn't exist anymore. Because to her, he didn't. He looked up at Sua's window again. She was moving around in there. Probably getting ready for bed. Rubbing her belly. Texting the real father. Whoever the fuck he was. While playing the devoted girlfriend to Min Jae. He should go up there. Confront her. Make her confess. But instead, he started the engine. And drove away. Because he realized something sitting in that car. Sua didn't matter anymore. The baby didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was finding Yuna and Jay, and he had no idea where to start. Min Jae didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, not the home office, but the real one, the one in the back of the gambling house on the east side, surrounded by 3 of his most trusted men. Find her, he said simply. They nodded. They knew better than to ask questions when he used that tone. By morning, they had preliminary results. Boss, Jung-ho said, setting down a tablet. We checked everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, phone records. She withdrew 35 million won over the past 6 weeks. Small amounts. Different ATMs across the city. Never enough to trigger alerts. Min Jae's jaw clenched. 35 million won. Yuna had been planning this for over a month. Her phone? Dead. Turned off or destroyed. Last ping was at Incheon Airport Terminal 2 3 days ago. International flights? We're checking manifest now, but... Jung-ho hesitated. Boss, if she used a different name, or got help from someone outside our network, then find out who helped her. Min Jae's voice was ice. Someone drove them. Someone bought tickets. Someone knew. Find them. Jung-ho bowed and left. Min Jae stared at the tablet screen, at the bank transactions. Each one was small, unremarkable. But together, they told a story. Yuna had been leaving him in slow motion, and he'd been too blind to notice. His phone buzzed. Sua. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, he answered. What? Min Jae? Her voice was small, confused. Are you okay? You left so many messages last night and then you just disappeared. I'm worried. He hadn't left her any messages. He'd been too busy tracking Yuna. Then he realized she was lying. Testing him. Seeing if he'd contradict her. If he'd reveal where he actually was. How had he never noticed how much she lied? I'm fine, he said flatly. I'll call you later. But the doctor's appointment is at... He hung up. 30 seconds later, his second phone rang. The burner he kept for organization business. Hyung Nim. It was Tae Young, one of his street runners. We found something. The church. St. Mary's on the west side. Yuna's been going there every week for the past 2 months. We talked to the priest. And he won't talk to us. Says it's confessional privilege or some shit. But one of the church ladies, the gossipy one who runs the food bank, she mentioned Yuna had been asking about safe places for women, domestic abuse shelters, resources for single mothers. Min Jae's blood ran cold. Domestic abuse. Is that what she'd told people? That he hurt her? He'd never laid a hand on Yuna. Never. He'd neglected her. Yes. Chosen another woman. Yes. But abuse? Unless unless emotional abandonment counted, unless erasing her from his life while still making her live in it counted, unless making her watch him build a future with someone else counted. Maybe it did. Keep digging, Min-jae said. Check every shelter within 200 kilometers. Check her family contacts, anyone from her past. Boss, she doesn't have family. You know that. They all died in... Then check her friends, old university contacts, anyone she might have reached out to. On it. Min-jae ended the call and stood up, walked to the window overlooking the street below. It was raining. Seoul looked gray and blurred through the water-streaked glass. Somewhere in this city, or outside it, or in another country entirely, Yuna was watching the same rain with Jae, starting over, without him. And the worst part was, he'd given her every reason to.
Before you continue, if this story touched something in you, you should know this is only the beginning. The complete version includes 30 full audio stories, more than 30 hours of uninterrupted listening. No ads, no cuts, no distractions. Scan the QR code on your screen, or tap the link in the pinned comment to continue listening right now.
By day 4, they'd found the lawyer, attorney Kim Sun-hee, specialist in family law and strategic relocations for high-risk domestic cases. She operated out of Busan, which explained why Min-jae's Seoul network hadn't flagged her. Jung-ho put her file on Min-jae's desk. She's clean, no criminal ties, reputation for discretion, represents a lot of women trying to disappear from powerful men. Set up a meeting. Boss, she won't meet with you. We already tried. She said, and I quote, "Tell Mr. Park that attorney-client privilege means I'd rather go to prison than give him information about Mrs. Park." Min-jae almost smiled. Of course Yuna would choose someone like that. Then we go a different route. Find out who she knows, who she trusts, who owes her favors. Jung-ho nodded and left. Min-jae sat back in his chair. 4 days. 4 days since Yuna vanished. And he'd learned more about his wife than he had in 7 years of marriage. She'd been smarter than him. The whole time. She'd mapped out an escape route while he was busy playing house with a woman who'd been playing him. And now he had nothing. No wife, no son, no future with Suah. Because how could he look at her without seeing the lie? Without wondering who else knew? Without feeling like the entire organization was laughing at him behind his back? The great Park Min-jae, fooled by a pregnant mistress and outwitted by a quiet wife. His phone rang again. This time, it was someone he didn't expect. Min-jae, his father's voice. Rough, impatient. "I heard your wife left you." Of course he'd heard. Everyone had probably heard by now. "It's handled." "Is it?" A dry laugh. "You abandoned your family for a whore, and now the whore's baby isn't even yours. You think that's handled?" Min-jae's grip tightened on the phone. "The men are talking, Min-jae. They're saying you're weak, distracted, that you can't even control your own household, so how can you control territory? I'll find her. And then what? Drag her back? Force her to stay? You think that makes you look strong?" His father sighed. "You fucked up. Accept it. Move on." She took Jae. "Your son, who you forgot about the moment another woman said she was pregnant. Don't act like you care about the boy now." The words hit harder than any punch, because they were true. "Fix this," his father said. "Or I will." The line went dead. Min-jae sat in the dark office, alone, surrounded by evidence of a wife who'd outsmarted him, and a life that was crumbling faster than he could rebuild it. And for the first time in his adult life, he didn't know what to do. Day 7. Min-jae hadn't left his office in 48 hours. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and old coffee. Empty soju bottles lined the desk like soldiers standing guard over a battlefield he'd already lost. His phone sat face down on the leather surface, vibrating intermittently with messages he wouldn't read. Most were from Suah. Some were from his lieutenants, asking for orders he couldn't give. A few were from his father, those he'd read, but hadn't answered. Jung-ho knocked softly before entering. He didn't wait for permission anymore. Min-jae had stopped giving it 3 days ago. "Boss?" Jung-ho set down a folder. "Financial update. Yuna's lawyer made another withdrawal. 15 million won. Wired to an international account we can't trace without going through Interpol channels." Min-jae didn't look up. "Where?" "Singapore. But it bounced through 3 other countries first. She's got help. Professional help." "How professional?" "The kind that costs serious money. The kind that makes people disappear permanently if they want to." Jung-ho paused. "Boss, I have to ask, do you want us to keep going? Because at this rate, we're burning resources on a ghost. Your father already pulled our network access. We're working on scraps." Min-jae finally looked at him. Are you saying we should stop? I'm saying maybe she doesn't want to be found. And maybe that's the message. Get out. Jung-ho bowed and left. Min-jae opened the folder anyway. Bank statements, flight manifests with redacted names, security footage from Incheon Airport showing a woman and child, faces blurred by technical malfunction, boarding a flight to Bangkok. Then nothing. Bangkok, Thailand, a country with loose extradition policies and a massive expat community where foreigners could blend in easily. Smart. Yoona had always been smarter than him. He'd just been too arrogant to notice. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. Sua, we need to talk. I'm coming over. He started typing a response. Stopped. Deleted it. Then typed, don't. Her reply came instantly. Too late. I'm already here. Min-jae's jaw clenched. Of course she was. The knocking started 30 seconds later. Loud. Insistent. The kind of knocking that said, I'm not leaving until you open this door. Min-jae! Sua's voice carried through the reinforced door. I know you're in there. Jung-ho told me you haven't left in 2 days. Jung-ho. Min-jae would deal with him later. Min-jae, please, just talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. Your wife left you? Isn't that what we wanted? Why are you avoiding me? He sat perfectly still, staring at the door. Part of him wanted to open it, to confront her, to throw the DNA report in her face and watch her scramble for explanations. But another part, the part that had been growing louder over the past 7 days, didn't care anymore. Because Sua was just a symptom. He was the disease. Min-jae! Her voice cracked. I'm pregnant with your baby. You can't just ignore me. I need you. We need you. The lie sounded so practiced, so smooth, like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Had she always sounded like that? Or had he just been too desperate to notice? He stood up, walked to the door, put his hand on the handle, then stopped. If he opened that door, if he let her in, he'd have to face it. The confrontation, the tears, the manipulation, the revelation that would confirm what he already knew, but hadn't fully accepted, that he'd destroyed his marriage for nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from Jung-ho. Want me to remove her? Min-jae almost laughed. Remove her. Like she was a problem to be solved. An inconvenience to be managed. Wasn't that how he'd treated Yoona? He texted back. No, I'll handle it. He opened the door. Sua stood in the hallway, one hand on her rounded belly, tears streaking her carefully applied makeup. She dressed the part. Loose sweater, leggings, flat shoes. The picture of vulnerable motherhood. Min-jae, she breathed. Finally. I was so worried. Come in. She stepped inside quickly, like she was afraid he'd change his mind. Her eyes scanned the office. The bottles, the overflowing ashtray, the closed blinds blocking out the afternoon sun. My God, Min-jae. What's happened to you? You look terrible. He closed the door behind her. Locked it. Sua noticed. Her smile faltered slightly. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I'd rather stand. The baby gets uncomfortable when I... Sit. She sat. Min-jae walked around to his side of the desk. Didn't sit. Just stood there looking down at her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Sua's hands fidgeted in her lap. Min-jae, you're scaring me. What's going on? Why haven't you answered my calls? Did something happen with Yoona? Is she coming back? No, he said quietly. She's not coming back. Relief flashed across Sua's face. Then why are you... How far along are you? She blinked. What? The pregnancy. How many weeks? You know this. 26 weeks. We went to the ultrasound together last month. You saw... When did you get pregnant? Sua's expression shifted. Confusion. Then wariness. Min-jae, why are you asking me this? Answer the question. We've been together for 8 months. The baby was conceived in early May. You know this. We calculated it together. May. Min-jae nodded slowly. So conception would have been around May 7th. Give or take a few days. Right? Yes. What is this about? He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his calendar, stopped at May. May 7th through May 12th. I was in Busan. 5 days. Negotiating territory with the Choi family. You remember that trip? Sua's face paled slightly. Yes. You were gone for a while. 5 days. And we'd only been seeing each other for 3 months at that point. Still casual. No commitment. He looked up at her. So if you got pregnant during that conception window, it couldn't have been mine. Because I wasn't even in Seoul. The silence was deafening. Sua's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. That's not how conception windows work. The dates could be off. Doctors estimate they don't. Min-jae's voice was ice. Don't insult me more than you already have. She stood up abruptly. I don't know what you're trying to say, but... He pulled the envelope from his desk drawer, the same one Yuna had left on the kitchen table. The one addressed to Su'a. He'd kept it, studied it, memorized every word. He tossed it onto the desk between them. Open it. Su'a stared at the envelope like it was a snake. What is that? Open. It. With shaking hands, she picked it up, pulled out the paper. Min-jae watched her face as she read, watched the color drain, watched her eyes widen, watched her hands start to tremble. The DNA report slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. Min-jae, I can explain. Can you? He leaned forward, palms flat on the desk. Because I'd love to hear the explanation for how my wife, the woman I abandoned, the woman I humiliated, the woman I destroyed, somehow managed to get a DNA test proving that the baby you're carrying isn't mine. I'd really love to hear that explanation. Su'a's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time. It's a mistake. It has to be. These tests aren't always accurate. Yuna used a clinical lab, chain of custody, legal documentation. She didn't half-ass this, Su'a. She made sure. He straightened. So I'll ask again. Who's the father? You are. Who's the father? Min-jae, please. He slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Su'a flinched. Her hand went protectively to her belly. And in that moment, that single reflexive gesture, Min-jae saw the truth. She wasn't protecting his baby. She was protecting someone else's. His name, Min-jae said quietly. Deadly quiet. Tell me his name. Su'a's tears spilled over. It doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. You're the one I want to be with. You're the one who can give this baby a real life. So this was always the plan. Min-jae laughed bitterly. Get pregnant by some nobody. Convince me it's mine. Trap me into leaving my wife and ride my money and status into a comfortable future. It's not like that. Then what's it like? She was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. I was desperate, okay? You don't understand what it's like to have nothing. To be nothing. I grew up in a fucking shoebox apartment with a mother who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't pay rent. I watched her die at 50 from exhaustion. I swore I'd never end up like her. So you became a whore instead. She slapped him. The crack of her palm against his cheek echoed in the small office. Min-jae didn't move, just looked at her. Su'a's hand dropped. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Get out. Min-jae, get out of my office. Get out of my life. And if I find out you've been spreading rumors or talking to anyone in my organization about this, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about whose baby you're really carrying. Her face crumpled. You wouldn't. Try me. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. For what it's worth, she said without turning around. I did love you. In my own way. No, Min-jae said. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. Min-jae stood alone in the silent office, his cheek still stinging from her slap. He waited for the rage to come, the urge to destroy something, to call his men and have them drag the real father into this office and make him pay. But it didn't come. Instead, all he felt was empty. He went home that night. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it a week ago. Dark, cold, silent. He turned on one lamp. Just one. The overhead lights felt too bright, too exposing. Jay's dinosaur was still on the coffee table where he'd left it. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands. It was a Triceratops, Jay's favorite. He used to make it fight with his toy cars, even though Min-jae told him that didn't make sense because dinosaurs and cars didn't exist at the same time. But in my imagination they do, Appa, Jay had said. Appa. When was the last time Jay had called him that? Min-jae couldn't remember. He walked to Jay's room, stood in the doorway. The bed was still perfectly made, Yuna's doing. She'd always been meticulous about keeping Jay's space clean, organized, safe. Min-jae stepped inside, sat on the edge of the small bed. The walls were covered in drawings, Jay's artwork from school, stick figures and lopsided houses and smiling suns. One drawing caught his eye. 3 figures, one tall with black hair, one shorter with curly hair, one tiny in between them, holding both their hands. Appa, Uma, Jay. The family portrait was dated 8 months ago, before Su'a, before the pregnancy, before everything fell apart. In the drawing, all 3 figures were smiling. Min-jae picked up the paper. His hands were shaking. Had they really been happy? Or had Jay just drawn what he wanted to be true? He looked at the other drawings. More families, more smiling figures. But as the dates got more recent, something changed. The drawings showed only 2 figures now. Uma, Jay. Appa had disappeared from the pictures, erased, like he no longer existed in his son's world. Min-jae's chest tightened. He stood up quickly, left the room, couldn't breathe in there anymore. He went to the bedroom, to Yuna's closet. Most of her clothes were still there, the old ones, the ones from before marriage. He pulled out a dress, simple, navy blue. She'd worn it on their first date. He remembered that night, how nervous she'd been, how she'd spilled wine on the tablecloth and apologized 3 times, how she'd laughed when he'd told her it didn't matter, that the restaurant had terrible wine anyway. She'd had the best laugh. When was the last time he'd heard it? He sank to the floor, back against the closet door holding the dress, and for the first time since she left, he let himself remember. 7 years ago, Yuna had worked at a university library. Min-jae had met her by accident. He'd been meeting a professor who owed him money, and she'd been shelving books in the history section. She'd dropped an entire stack when she saw him, panicked, apologized in rapid Korean while scrambling to pick them up. He'd helped her. Their hands had touched over a copy of The Art of War. She'd blushed. He'd been charmed. It was the first time in years someone had looked at him without fear, without calculation, without wanting something. She'd just seen him, not Park Min-jae, the enforcer, not the boss's son, not the future heir to a criminal empire, just a man helping her pick up books. He'd asked her to coffee. She'd said yes. They dated for 6 months before he told her who he really was, what his family did. She'd cried when he'd confessed, said she'd suspected but hoped she was wrong. But she didn't leave. "I see who you are underneath," she'd said. "I see the man who remembers my coffee order, who calls his mother every Sunday, who leaves extra tip because servers work hard. That's the man I love." He'd proposed 3 months later. She'd said yes. They'd gotten married in a small ceremony. Her family had been thrilled. The few relatives she had left after the accident that killed her parents and brother. His father had been less thrilled, but he'd allowed it. "She's soft," his father had said. "She'll make you soft, but maybe you need that." And for a while, it had been good, really good. Jae had been born a year later. Yuna had glowed during the pregnancy. Min-jae had promised her he'd be different than his father, that he'd actually be present, actually be a dad, and he had been, for the first few years. But then the organization demanded more. Territory wars, power struggles, long nights and dangerous deals, and slowly, he'd pulled away, not consciously, not cruelly, just gradually, until one day he'd looked up and realized he'd become exactly what his father had been, a ghost in his own home, and Yuna had stopped trying to reach him. She'd just adapted, become quieter, smaller, like she was trying not to take up space in his life. He'd told himself she was fine with it, that she understood this was his world. He'd been lying to himself. And then Suah had happened. Young, interested, available. Everything Yuna wasn't anymore, or everything he'd convinced himself Yuna wasn't. The affair had started as a mistake, a drunk night after a violent deal. Then it had become regular. Then it had become a pregnancy. And he'd made his choice. The wrong fucking choice. Min-jae's phone rang, jerking him back to the present. Unknown number. He answered. "What?" "Mr. Park." A calm, professional voice. Male. Unfamiliar. "I believe we need to talk about your wife." Min-jae's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "I'm the investigator Mrs. Park hired 3 weeks ago. She paid me to find the truth about Miss Suah's pregnancy." A pause. "I assume you've seen the results by now. How did you get this number?" "Mrs. Park provided it, along with very specific instructions." "Where is she?" "I don't know. That wasn't part of my contract." "Then what the fuck do you want?" The investigator's voice remained perfectly even. "To deliver a message. Mrs. Park wanted you to know 3 things. First, she knows everything about Suah and the real father. Second, she's not coming back. And third," the man paused, "she said to tell you that she could have destroyed you, that she had every right to. But she chose mercy instead." Min-jae laughed bitterly. "Mercy? She took my son. Your son." The investigator's tone shifted. Colder, sharper. "With all due respect, Mr. Park, when exactly did Jay become yours again? Was it before or after you missed his 7th birthday last month? Before or after you forgot his school play? Before or after you stopped tucking him in at night because you were too busy with another woman?" Min-jae's breath caught. "Mrs. Park mentioned you didn't even remember his birthday. October 14th. You were shopping for cribs for another man's baby while your actual son waited at home for you to call, but you never did. How do you—" "Because she told me. Because when I interviewed her for this case, She sat in my office and cried for 45 minutes about how the love of her life had forgotten their son existed, about how Jay kept asking when Appa was coming home, about how she had to lie to a 7-year-old child and say you were busy with work when you were actually playing house with your mistress. Each word was a knife. So no, Mr. Park, Jay isn't yours. He's hers. Because she's the one who showed up. Every single day. The line went dead. Min-jae sat in the silence, the investigator's words echoing. October 14th, Jay's birthday. He pulled out his phone, checked the calendar. There it was, marked. Jay's birthday, 7 years old. He'd set a reminder, and he'd ignored it, because he'd been with Sua that day, at a furniture store, picking out a crib, for a baby that wasn't even his, while his actual son waited for a call that never came. Min-jae stood up, walked to the bathroom, turned on the cold water, splashed his face, looked in the mirror. The man staring back looked hollow, older, tired, destroyed, and he'd done it to himself. The package arrived the next morning, hand-delivered by courier. No return address, just a small padded envelope with his name written in neat handwriting. Not Yuna's handwriting. Min-jae opened it carefully. Inside was a USB drive, black, unmarked, and a note. She wanted you to see this, one time, then she's gone forever. A friend. Min-jae's hands shook as he plugged the USB into his laptop. One file. Video. He clicked it. The screen showed a playground. Somewhere warm. Tropical. Palm trees swaying in the background. Bright blue sky. The camera was shaky. Handheld. Probably a phone. And then the frame steadied on a swing set. A child sat on one of the swings, pumping his legs, going higher and higher. Jay. Min-jae's breath stopped. His son looked different. His hair was longer. He was wearing clothes Min-jae had never seen. A bright yellow t-shirt with a cartoon turtle on it. Shorts. Sandals. But most of all, he looked happy. Really, truly happy. Jay was laughing. That high, bright laugh of pure joy that children have when nothing in the world matters except the moment they're in. Higher, Uma. Push me higher. The camera panned slightly. And there, behind the swing, was Yuna. She was pushing Jay gently, smiling. Her hair was shorter, cut to her shoulders. She wore a simple sundress. No makeup. Sandals. She looked free. Not too high, baby, she said, laughing. I don't want you flying into the ocean. But I want to touch the sky. Then you'll have to grow wings first. Jay giggled. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll grow wings and fly away. Then I'd have to grow wings too, so I could fly with you. Promise? Promise. Min-jae watched, frozen, as Yuna pushed their son on the swing, both of them laughing under a foreign sun in a place he'd never seen. They looked like they'd escaped, like they'd found something he'd taken from them. Peace. The video continued for another 20 seconds. Just Jay swinging, Yuna pushing, both of them existing in a moment that didn't include him, didn't need him. Then Yuna stopped pushing. Let the swing slow naturally. She walked around to face Jay, crouched down to his level. Okay, baby. 1 more minute, then we have to go. Aw, but I know, but we have a long day tomorrow. Remember? Jay's face lit up. The beach? The beach. With the big waves? With the big waves. And if you're very good, maybe we'll get ice cream after. Jay pumped his fist. Yes. Yuna laughed and ruffled his hair. Then she stood up and turned toward the camera. Min-jae's heart stopped. She walked closer, close enough that her face filled the screen. She wasn't smiling anymore. She just looked at him, through the camera, through the distance, through everything that had shattered between them. Her eyes were calm, resolved, final. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. That look said everything. This is what you lost. This is what you chose to give up. This is us without you. And we're okay. She held his gaze for 5 more seconds, then reached out and turned off the camera. The screen went black. Min-jae sat motionless, staring at the dark screen. His hands were shaking. He replayed the video, watched it again, and again, and again, trying to find clues, to figure out where they were, what country, what city, what beach with big waves. But all he could see was her face, that final look, that goodbye. Not the angry kind, not the tearful kind, the kind that said, I've already moved on. He checked the file properties. No metadata, no location data. Whoever sent this knew how to cover their tracks. He unplugged the USB and threw it across the room. It clattered against the wall and fell silent. Min-jae sat in his chair, head in his hands. They were gone. Really, truly gone. And they were happy. Without him. His father called an hour later. You've been making inquiries. expensive ones, calling in favors across 3 countries, mobilizing resources. His voice was hard, controlled, dangerous, for a woman who doesn't want to be found. She's my wife. She was your wife. Now she's a ghost. And you're making us look weak, chasing her across the globe like some pathetic husband from a drama. I need to— What you need, his father cut him off, is to remember who you are. Park Min-jae, heir to this organization, not some lovesick fool throwing resources at a dead end. She took Jae, your son, the son you forgot about the moment another woman claimed she was pregnant with your child, the son whose birthday you missed, whose school events you stopped attending, whose entire existence you erased from your life. His father's voice was ice. Don't pretend you suddenly care about the boy now that he's gone. The words hit like physical blows. I'm calling off the search. Effective immediately. You want to find her? Do it on your own time. With your own money. But you don't use our network, our contacts, or our resources for this anymore. Is that clear? You can't. I can. And I am. A pause. The organization doesn't chase ghosts, Min-jae. We move forward. We adapt. We don't get mired in sentiment. This isn't sentiment, it's exactly that. You made your choice when you left her for that pregnant whore. Now live with it. The baby isn't mine. Silence on the other end. Then quietly. What? Sua's baby. It's not mine. DNA test proves it. Yuna had it done before she left. More silence. Then his father laughed. Not a happy laugh. A cold, bitter one. So you destroyed your marriage for another man's bastard. You humiliated yourself. Our family. Our organization. For nothing. I didn't know. You didn't care to know. You were so desperate for something new, something exciting, that you threw away everything that mattered. His father's voice dropped. You're weak, Min-jae. Just like I always feared. The line went dead. Min-jae sat alone in the silent apartment. Weak. His father was right. He'd had everything. A wife who loved him. A son who adored him. A stable life. And he'd thrown it away for a lie wrapped in a pretty face. Now he had nothing. No wife. No son. No mistress. No respect. Nothing. He walked to the window. Looked out at Seoul sprawling below him. Millions of people. Millions of lives. Millions of families intact while his had disintegrated. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it. No words. Just a photo. Yuna and Jae on a beach. They were building a sandcastle. Jae was laughing, bucket in hand. Yuna was kneeling beside him, helping shape the towers. Behind them, the ocean stretched endlessly. And in the corner of the photo, barely visible, someone else. A shadow. A figure sitting under a beach umbrella watching them. Min-jae zoomed in. It was too blurry to make out features. But the shape was definitely human. Definitely there. Someone was with them. Another text arrived. She moved on. Maybe you should too. Min-jae stared at the message. Moved on. Yuna had moved on. And whoever sent this photo wanted him to know. Wanted him to stop looking. He should listen. He should accept it. Move forward. Rebuild. He couldn't. Because now there was a new question burning in his mind. Who was that person on the beach? That night, Min-jae did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Not in a church. Not formally. He didn't even remember how to pray properly. He just sat in Jae's empty room, in the dark, and spoke to whatever God might be listening. I know I don't deserve it, he whispered. I know I fucked up. I know I destroyed everything good in my life. The room was silent. But if you're there, if there's any chance, please keep them safe. Keep Jae safe. Keep Yuna safe. His voice cracked. And if I never see them again, let them be happy. Let them have the life I couldn't give them. He sat there for an hour. No divine response came. Just silence. 3 days later, Min-jae received another package. This one was larger. Heavier. Inside was a laptop. Old. Worn. Password protected. And another note. She wanted you to understand. The password is October 14th. Watch everything. Then let her go. Min-jae's hands shook as he opened the laptop. Entered the password. 1014. The desktop loaded. One folder. The truth you didn't see. He clicked it. Inside were dozens of videos. Dated. Organized chronologically. The first was dated 8 months ago. The day he'd told Yuna he was leaving her for Sua. He clicked it. The video showed the kitchen. Their kitchen. The camera was hidden. Probably in the smoke detector above the table. The angle was wide, capturing the whole room. And there, sitting at the table, was Yuna, waiting for him. The timestamp showed 6:47 p.m. The video played. At 7:15 p.m., Min-jae entered the frame. He watched himself walk in. Pour a drink. Avoid eye contact with his wife. Watched Yuna ask, "Are you hungry?" "I made your favorite." Watched himself say, "I'm not staying for dinner." Watched her face fall. And then, he watched himself say the words that ended everything. "I'm leaving you. Suah is pregnant. I'm going to be with her." On screen, Yuna's face went completely still. Not angry, not crying, just empty. Like something inside her had shut down. "Okay," she'd said quietly, and Minjae remembered thinking she didn't care. But now, watching this video, he saw what he'd missed. He saw her hands gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. He saw her jaw clench. He saw her eyes fill with tears she refused to let fall. Not because she didn't care, but because she had too much pride to break in front of him. He watched himself leave the kitchen, watched Yuna sit alone at the table for 15 minutes, then watched her finally let herself cry. Silent sobs that shook her entire body. No sound. Just tears streaming down her face as she buried her head in her arms. And in the doorway, barely visible in the frame, Jay, their 7-year-old son, watching his mother cry, not understanding, but knowing something terrible had happened. The video ended. Minjae sat frozen. He'd done that. He'd broken her, and she'd hidden it from him, had kept crying until he was gone so he wouldn't see, had protected him from seeing the damage he'd caused. Why? He opened the next video, and the next, and the next. Hours of footage, weeks of hidden recordings, all showing Yuna's life after he left, showing her making breakfast for Jay while fighting back tears, showing her helping with homework while her hands shook, showing her tucking Jay into bed, reading stories, being both mother and father because Minjae wasn't there anymore, showing her lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, showing her slowly, painfully, rebuilding herself piece by piece. And nowhere in any of these videos did she badmouth him to Jay. Nowhere did she poison their son against him. When Jay asked, "Where's Appa?" she always said the same thing. "Appa's busy with work, baby. But he loves you very much." Even when it was a lie. Even when Minjae had stopped loving anything except his fantasy. She'd protected him. Protected his relationship with Jay. Protected the man who'd destroyed her. Minjae watched until he couldn't anymore. Until the videos blurred through his tears. Until he understood, finally, completely, what he'd lost. Not just a wife, a saint. The last video was different. It was dated 3 days before she left. The camera angle was close, handheld. Yuna was looking directly into it, recording herself. "Minjae," she said softly, "if you're watching this, it means I'm already gone. It means I finally found the courage to leave." She smiled sadly. "I wanted you to see these videos because I need you to understand something. I didn't leave because I hate you. I left because I love Jay more than I hate what you did to me." She took a breath. "I could have destroyed you. I had the DNA test. I had evidence of everything Suah did. I could have gone to your father, to your organization, and humiliated you in front of everyone. But I didn't, because that would hurt Jay. And he's already been hurt enough." Her eyes filled with tears. "You were a good man once, Minjae."
If you stayed until the end, it's because this story stayed with you. What you heard here is just a fragment. The full experience lives in 30 complete audio stories, carefully told with every emotion, every secret, and every moment that couldn't be shared on YouTube. There are no ads, no interruptions, and you can listen anytime, anywhere, in total privacy. Scan the QR code on your screen now, or tap the link in the pinned comment, and discover what was never said.
"I saw it. I loved it. I married it. But somewhere along the way, you forgot how to be that man, and I can't stay and watch you forget anymore." She wiped her eyes. "I'm taking Jay somewhere safe, somewhere far from your world, somewhere he can grow up without fear, without violence, without learning that women are disposable. I'm giving him the childhood you can't." She leaned closer to the camera. "Don't look for us. Don't send your men. Don't try to bring us back. We're gone, Minjae. Really gone. And we're okay. I hope someday you'll be okay too. Goodbye." She reached out. The video ended. Minjae sat in the darkness, tears streaming down his face. She'd given him mercy. When she could have destroyed him, she'd given him mercy. And he'd spent the last week trying to hunt her down like a criminal. He was everything she'd protected Jay from. Minjae closed the laptop, stood up, walked to his safe, pulled out a burner phone he kept for emergencies, typed a message to Jung-ho. "Call off everything. Stop looking for her. Effective immediately. That's an order." Sent. Then he took the laptop, the USB drive, and every piece of evidence of Yuna's escape, and locked them in his safe. He wouldn't look at them again. He would let her go, like she asked, like she deserved. It was the least he could do, the only thing he could do. That night, as Min-jae lay in bed, unable to sleep, his phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him look. A video file. Against every instinct, he opened it. The screen showed Yuna's apartment, the one he was lying in right now. His current apartment. The feed was live. The camera was in the same place as all the others. The smoke detector above the kitchen table. She'd never removed it. He sat up, heart pounding. The camera had been recording him this entire time. Every moment since she left. His breakdown with Soo-ah. His conversations with Jung-ho. His prayer in Jae's room. His tears watching the videos. She'd seen everything. The camera feed suddenly shifted. Text appeared on screen. I know you're watching. I've been watching too. Min-jae's blood ran cold. More text. You finally stopped looking. Thank you. But now I need you to know something. The person on the beach isn't what you think. And what I'm about to do next will change everything you thought you knew about me, about us, about why I really left. The truth about Soo-ah was just the beginning. Phase 2 starts now. The feed cut to black. Min-jae stared at the dark screen, his mind racing. Phase 2? What the fuck did that mean? He looked around his apartment with new eyes. How many cameras were there? How long had she been watching him? And what else did she know that he didn't? His phone buzzed again. Another message. Another video. This one showed footage from 3 years ago. Min-jae and his father. In his father's office. Having a conversation Min-jae barely remembered. He pressed play. And as he watched, as he heard the words he'd forgotten he'd said, as the truth of what happened 3 years ago came flooding back, everything changed. Because Yuna hadn't just been planning to escape. She'd been planning revenge. And Min-jae had just given her exactly what she needed to execute it. Min-jae thought he knew why Yuna left. He was wrong. The DNA test was just the surface. The real secret, the one Yuna's been hiding for 3 years, is about to detonate. And when Min-jae discovers who's really been helping her, when he learns what she witnessed that night 3 years ago, when he realizes the person on the beach isn't a new lover, but someone from his past who was supposed to be dead, everything he thought he knew about his wife, his marriage, and his own family will turn to ash, because Yuna didn't just escape. She declared war, and the first casualty? His father.